Okay, we're good. I think we're good. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank
I
you.
was just
Thank
welcoming
you.
everybody to the new year. Um, saying Happy New Year because it's 2020 and we are here. And we want to kind of delve into some things that I know I've gotten in my DMs, some questions and some thoughts on what our thoughts are really. So, Randy, introduce yourself to people that don't know you on live. Yeah, and who you are.
Okay, that's a loaded question, but my name is Randy, Randy Harris. I am the co-star alongside Sharice in our most recent documentary, Where's My Inheritance? I am a spiritual being having a human experience, and
Yes.
that's who I am.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay. Thank you for joining me today. For those of you guys who don't know, Randy and I are going to be trying to do a lot more content, especially for Raise My Inheritance. For those that follow the page, for those that are joining live because of the page, definitely. Hey, everybody. Just definitely trying to make sure that is Randy, Stephanie, yes. Just definitely trying to incorporate more of growth and learning about ourselves and learning about our ancestry and how that makes us who we are. And that's what it's all about. So, all right, let's get into it. So the topic that I wanted to go over today was, everyone's talking about like new year, new me. Now this happens every year. Every year. This is like a social media phenomenon. Every year it happens where people are like, F this guy, but then they don't really mean that. And then, or it's like, F this job, and it's like, but they really don't mean that either. So my question to you, Randy, thoughts, and these are like a great discussion, and anyone that's on live with us, definitely give us your thoughts on this. What do you think of the false new year, new me? Do you think that it places pressure to evolve or to be something that you're not, only to fail and not accomplish it? Or is it something that you think is necessary in order to move into the new year?
Okay, so I kind of look at it from two different angles.
Yeah.
So
You stalled on us.
sorry,
Okay.
Malcolm.
Go ahead.
It being a new year, I think it gives everybody a chance to rejuvenation,
Okay.
kind of like a time to just hit the reset button. We even see this at work with your personal time off, everything just resets. So it's
Sure.
okay, now I have all this new energy, all this new time to do what I couldn't do towards the end of the year. So
You said you're breaking up.
oh, I'm breaking up. Okay, hold on.
I mean, I can hear you now,
Oh, you can hear me?
but I think, okay. I can hear you now, but I think
I'm
you're
good?
breaking up before. Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think it's really it gives people a chance to kind of redefine themselves, just recreate, reinvent yourself from where you're going,
Right.
especially that we're going into a new decade, which
Yeah.
is a little bit different from it just being 2017, 2018.
Right.
It's like a whole fresh start. So, but yeah, I mean, it does kind of lead to that whole stigma of year, new me. But then we just kind of still have the same habits because nobody takes the time to prepare them. You got to prepare yourself. You got to really sit down from September, October to say, all right, new year. What are my goals? What is it that I'm working on? What do I need to kind of put in place in order to be successful? Starting from November, right before the holidays come. So
I want to comment on it. I think that for me, I think it's about learning how to manifest what it is that you want at any point in your life, right? I think that the new year, new me, I think it could be a detriment, I think, to people. Because not that it's not something that you could use to be positive. I just feel like I've seen it do more harm than good, where I feel like you get so fixated on the time, right? And we're going by the Gregorian calendar, which is only one calendar. If you were going by the Jewish calendar, you'd be September. If you were going by the Indian calendar, you'd be March. Everyone has a different time. So I feel like time is relative. And I feel like for me, I mean, I shouldn't say it's detrimental. I think it could be something that people don't use for what it can be. But I feel like for me, I take my birthday as the new year. So manifesting for me looks okay, all these new things. You want to create a new you. I feel like your birthday is when it kind of you're a new year, it's like a new energy. Like for you, that should be your own personal new. But I also feel like, you know, instead of just kind of following the trend, I feel like my next question is something that someone asked me was, how do you make it like successful? How do you make it a new year? How do you actually like, what are the things that are like, you must do these things if you want to like become a new person? And maybe like you can comment on it. What are some of the things that like mentally you need to be doing, emotionally, spiritually? What are some of the things that you think make someone follow through on that gym habit? Like they want to go to the gym, they want to lose weight. Like what could be something that you've noticed that has worked for you?
For me personally, I think you have to take the time, one, to kind of cleanse your body. So like doing a, you know, a detox, maybe a colonic, you know, just a quick little cleanse just to kind of rid your body of all those toxins.
Yeah.
I think definitely cleaning house, you know, like, you know, straightening up, you know, maybe throwing away some old clothes, dusting, cleaning up your
So
contact.
physical,
Yeah,
getting
you
your
gotta,
physical space first.
you have to. I mean, in order to really get your mind right to like make that transformation, everything around you must be clean. Like everything, your car has to be clean. You know, you should, you know, get your nails done. You know, get your feet done. Do your laundry. Like, make sure everything around you is clean and it's new. Because if you're trying to go into a new year and manifest all these new things with still the same old energy around you, you know, you're not really doing yourself the justice.
And then the other part is talking about old energy. So do you always feel that was actually one of the memes that I was looking at that people were commenting on. Do you always feel like in this new age, we're in a different paradigm. I feel like a lot of people are very more about healing, more about self-growth. And you hear that a lot. You got to let go. You got to let go of everything. You got to cut everything off. You got to detach. You got to move on. Do you feel that always letting go and always cutting people, things, situations off is always the solution?
That's a good question. I think it is in a way, in a sense. I don't think it's really cutting people off because, you know, it's like the saying goes, energy is neither lost nor created, just transferred from one state to another. So that old energy that you may just like move out of your direct vision, you're just going to replace it and supplement it with something else. So you're still going to keep that same rotation of energy around you, whether it be, well, this friend wasn't good at communication. I'm just going to replace this friend with a new friend. You know, I think it's different where it's like, I'm just going to void myself of this completely, like cold turkey. So like, you know, everybody's quick to go to the gym, but who's quick to change their diet and actually do the meditation and do all those different things? But that's a good question though, man. You really caught me off guard with that.
I got another one.
Go ahead.
Transitioning into healing journeys, like I'm all about healing and like the whole person and like how we journey. Because every single person, whether they want to believe it or not, is on a journey. Is on some type of journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And acknowledging that and having supportive tools to like move on your journey, I think is what makes us value to each other. We can help each other, you know, along the way, even if you're not even like meaning to. Even some things that you do against someone actually can help them along their journey. So with that being said, do you feel that men and women, and rather really how do men and women differ along their healing journey? So like I can speak from the female perspective, but like from a male perspective, how do you as a male, how have you gone through and are continuing to go through your healing wholeness journey in this part of your life?
I think for a man, for males in general, I think we compartmentalize our feelings, our pain, our suffering, our trauma, and we don't really give ourselves the proper outlets to really like detox and just cleanse out all those like bottled up emotions that we have. So we really don't really get a chance to do that, especially in like our 20s, like our teenage years, and in our 20s. You don't really see too much of that going on, but I think as most men start to mature, like right around like that 27 to like 34 range, those 7 years, you really start to see like, you know, men start to be more aware of their patterns. Like, okay, there's a pattern that I have.
That's
This is
real.
what I'm doing. You know, here's what's going on. Like, why do I keep meeting the same type of women? Or why is it that, you know, when this stimulus happens, it triggers me to do this? And, you know, you start to take a little bit more ownership of your lack of discipline and just, you know, the lack of that self-control. But I think the healing process for most men, it has to start with that conversation with yourself, you know, looking yourself in the mirror, being able to acknowledge your faults, acknowledge the mistakes you make, own it. And then actually, now that you're aware of it, now you can start the next process, which is coming up with a solution or a plan on, now how do I start to work on this? But you have to be able to acknowledge it and know, like, here's my pattern, here's what I'm doing. I don't know how to fix it, but I know this is what I do.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good insight. Thank you for that. I feel like with women, I almost want to say, like, gathering all the females that I know of, I think healing is something that I've seen it happen more in like communal spaces. So for instance, one female will be like going through something and she'll vocalize like, this is what I'm going through. This is how I'm going through it. And that like channels the rest of us to be like, oh, like in introspection, like that's maybe I haven't like dealt with that. And so then it kind of like, I feel like for us, it's more communal. I feel like, because we talk a lot about how we're feeling. We talk a lot about what's going on. So I feel like from a young age, you know, to the age of like maybe probably 21, like after you graduate school, 21, 22, I think from 0 to 21, 22, I think for a woman or for a girl, you're basically always communicating, but sometimes communicating without reflecting or without like introspection, I think is just like you expressing yourself or learning how to express yourself. But I think for women, I think healing starts after trauma or after disappointment or after hurts and pains. And usually that happens and you kind of start seeing those patterns right around your mid to late 20s. I've seen a lot of women in their late 20s to early 30s start to be like, okay, I need to like reevaluate my life. I need to get it together. I think for a lot of women, it is before 30. I've seen that. I remember probably 90% of my girlfriends before everyone turned 30, it was just like, I have to get my life together. I can't like just be out here in my 30s, you know, messing around with guys and doing crazy things or whatever the case is. And I think that that's more because of where we are biologically. You know, I feel like.
Now I have a question to ask you.
Okay, go ahead.
So do you think, and I could be wrong, so I just want to throw it out there. Do you think that there's a, I don't want to say it like a stigma, but do you think that women from the age of maybe 0 to 21 aren't really taught the true value of taking responsibility for their emotions?
Oh, absolutely. We're not taught that.
All right. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. This, and that's what I wanted to like really bring you on to talk about. Because you and I talk a lot about this, like offline, we always like kind of go back and forth about this. But legit, I think that a part of being a conscious-minded woman, I think, is acknowledgement. You know, it's the acknowledgement of like, these are my feelings, these are my emotions. Feelings come and feelings go. That's one thing. Then these are your feelings and your emotions as a male, and those feelings come and those feelings go too. And then there's like, these are the actions that those feelings brought out. Now, how do we deal with that? I feel like that's when you get to a level of like maturity, where like I call it spiritual maturity, where you can look at the situation as for what it is, right? And remove your ego from it and kind of like look at it from like a spirit to spirit person. Like we are all on a spiritual journey, every single one of us in some way, shape, or form. And it's looking at it and looking at that person's inner being and being like, what are you going through that you did that to me? Or what is it that I was going through that I attracted you to do this to me? Like it has to be a level of like but I agree that I don't think that women from 0 to 21 at all are equipped to actually deal with, unfortunately, the same heartbreak that they're going to have to get healing from. It's kind of like this really bad cycle I've seen. You know what I mean? So I do think that's why I feel like for me, my passions are always like the younger women. Like, I'm always interested in talking like young girls because I feel like there's something between like 0 to 18. Like there's that like special space that nobody like really thinks about, like the TV, what they're looking at, the media, what boys are thinking and saying to them, what they're experiencing at home, what family members don't tell them. I think girls are just kind of like brought through. You kind of see the movies, right? You kind of fantasize about what you think you want. And then you're seeking this validation or whatever it is you're looking for in a male. You are looking for it. Instead of, I think for me, when I really got to a conscious level, I think for me, it was understanding that it's not that you are needing to look for a male to validate you as a woman. It is understanding that you, as a feminine energy, will always require a masculine energy around you. It isn't something to be controlled or contrived. It's just that it's the balance of the universe. The universe is both masculine and feminine. And understanding that means that you can then set boundaries where it's like, oh, wait, I don't have to like run after you, do all this stuff. I just like enjoy your company. Right. And what women find, like a lot of women that I've spoken to that have had that level of like awareness, what they have found is that they have way more men around them than they even had before, because you're not with them because you're trying to like get something or have them feel something. You're just like, we can build each other in some way. We can support each other in some way. And I think that it gives you sort of like a better awareness of the type of men that you're attracting, if that is something that you're interested in attracting. So I feel like there is something that needs to be done with the young kids, because now I have a question for you now, because you brought that up, but I have a question. Do you feel like young boys from the ages of 0 to 18 are ill-informed on how to emotionally deal with a female?
I would say yes and no. And the only reason why I kind of say no is because they're being raised by women mostly. So.
Oh boy, you're about to go into another layer.
No, I'm not trying to go into another layer, but I'm just saying, if you really look at it and you factor it from all angles, these boys are being matured and they're being molded spiritually. They get their whole sense of emotional intelligence from a woman, or maybe the lack thereof. So I don't see how a young male such as myself can grow up, be raised by a woman, no real male presence around, aside from like my grandfather and,
right.
extended family.
Yeah.
But I should be a master at understanding women because I was raised by one. Whereas you see on the reverse side where girls who are predominantly close to their fathers, they have that sense and that understanding of how men are, and they actually understand it. I think they're able to accept men for who they are, as opposed to those who kind of were like, what's the word I'm looking for? Shielded. They were shielded from men and boys at a young age, so they don't really have that knowledge and understanding of how the male psyche works,
right.
Because I think if you can understand, like, naturally a woman is going to be more maternal. She's going to be more intuitive. She's going to think with her heart, feel with her mind, whereas a man thinks with his mind, feels with his heart. You know what I'm saying? So it's just understanding the differences that make us one. We're not the same, we're different, right. But our differences allow us to become one, and that's the yoke. That's the yin
and yang.
The yin and yang, exactly. But yeah, boys they're not aware of the consequences of their actions and the emotional. We're not taught that. I mean, because you got to think about it from the time any child is born, right? The person who rocks the cradle rules the world, right? And for the most part, it's the mother who's breastfeeding the baby, changing the diapers, nurturing it, taking care of a child from 0 to 7 years old. Right. Now, from about 7 to 14, you start to see a kid start to right. Go off on their own a little bit. But once they hit 14, it's like, I'm now developing my own ego. Like, I'm cultivating who I see myself as after 14 years. Right. And that's not by coincidence. Like, that's all genetics. That's all biology, Yeah. But it's interesting, though, that, the state of the black man, where we're at present day, and I just think the conversations aren't really being had with who are raising these black men. Where are they getting these? I mean, if they're not around men, where are they getting these ideologies from? And this is where you talk about the influence of mass media, social media, all these different things. But how is it that young males are being raised by women, and we still don't know how to treat them right.
Woo!
That's the part. And, I don't think there's not enough. I don't think there's enough grooming by black moms or black mothers.
No, wait. Let's stick a pin in that. Wow.
Oh, okay.
So, wow. So this is my question then.
Yeah.
I feel like that was pretty deep. Okay, I think that a lot of black men that I know that were not raised by a two-parent home.
Mm-hmm.
One of the major gaps that I've seen is it's the ability to sort of have and confidently maintain long-term relationships compared to black men that I've seen who did grow up in two-parent household. Whether it's just in the conversation of how, like, you could tell there's a sense of hesitancy with those that had single family versus like, now, but once again, this does not eliminate, because I can also say within the two-parent, just because you have two parents, it doesn't mean you're not effed up. Because I've seen I've seen guys that were very abusive, that were very controlling, and that were very male patriarchy because they grew up with a mom and a dad. And so it could go the other way too. So I'm not, by all means, anyone listening to this, I'm not saying that someone that is in either one of those situations will have the ideal. I'm just noticing as a whole what it could do to someone. But in a healthy situation for a two-parent household, I've seen healthy situations because I've seen a lot of guys that I've spoken to, they're just like, I want a wife. Like, I know what that is. I want a family. Like, I know what I want because I've watched it all of my life. Versus someone who didn't see that, there might be a fear of divorce. There might be a fear of this abandonment. There might, right? The father wasn't there. So it's like, well, that makes me feel like, where do I fit? How do I kind of become a man? How do I go into that? So I would say that that's interesting that you said who is raising them, because it kind of brings up a question. It's true. Why don't they know how to treat the women that they basically were raised by, essentially? Like, kind of scary to think about.
Well, I think because there's, I think it's tough when you have to assume two different identity roles inside of a household. Being a mom and having to try to nurture your child and to, do those, maternal things while still trying to be the breadwinner and provide and put food on the table and go to work. You don't really get the opportunity or the time to really think about how is my son, treating women. You don't really get that much time. And then also it's the vetting process. I think a lot of black families, not all, but some they lack that counsel, like to have the counsel around you to say, okay, listen, there's a person that I met, women, I think women for the most part have like that female counsel on like their in crowd, their in circle. And, they'll bring up potential candidates and be like, hey, so I met this new guy, and, it'll be the whole circle of sisters. Right. I met this new guy. But men also need that for not just between men, but for women. They need to go to their aunts, their grandmothers, their mothers and say, listen, I met this woman. Here's how she is. Here's what I know about her so far. What do you guys think?
Right.
I think.
And are you saying that you don't have that? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think most guys do that. We don't practice those things. Now we may do it with our boys, but it's not really meaningful conversations, or constructive conversations to say, okay, well, all right, so you met a woman who has a child already from a situation. She's not with the father of her child. Okay, what are some of the red flags? What questions have you asked her? And I think because we lack those questions to ask, we just find ourselves making decisions about potential mates just based off of.
It's real.
Just
based off. Yeah.
He's attractive. He looks nice. Right. He has a good but there's no real substance to it, and we don't get into the questions of substance probably hardly ever. We meet people and it's like, okay, well, what do you like to do for fun? What are your hobbies? No, I don't need to know about that. Let me ask you the hard-hitting question so I don't waste your time. You don't waste my time. But You know, people say that all the time. They don't like to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. Yet you have no questions to ask to vet out any potential person you meet.
That's true. That's true. I have a fun quote that I saw that caused a little bit of back and forth with some Instagram folks that I thought would have been funny to discuss. So I'll read it. It said, this is from Terry Devon. He does a lot of like posts about like relationships, and he talks a lot about how like, you know, women don't get men and that's why we're single. Like he is like king of controversy. No, he is king of controversy. It's really funny. But I have a quote from him, and that's kind of where I wanted to like hear your thoughts on. The quote is, one of the biggest reasons women continue to struggle with men is because of the thinking that things, it's because of the old thinking of the things that they believe about men. And that, wait, I'm sorry. One of the biggest reasons women continue to struggle with men is because of the things that they believe about men, and it is usually false or inaccurate, and they refuse to update their perspective. And his whole theory is that is why. And obviously there's a lot of back and forth, but what are your thoughts about that theory as a male that he has?
So he's pretty much saying that what women are stuck in like old traditional ways.
Right.
I mean, well,
or old backward ways, or like just inaccurate thought process. Kind of going back to what you're saying, with like 0 to 18 or 0 to 21.
So here's how I kind of look at that, right?
Yeah.
I look at the traditional sense and what, you know, the masculine and the feminine energy was, right? I kind of compare it to how math is being taught today, right?
Okay.
Remember, we were taught math, we were taught how to do multiplication, division a certain way, and it worked. It made sense.
Right.
There was nothing broke about it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody along the way said, you know what, let's just decide, let's just do this a whole entirely new, different way.
Right.
And we're looking at it like, wait, this doesn't even make any sense. Like,
right.
So I kind of feel the same way about like old traditional ways. It's like, if it wasn't broke, why did we need to fix something that actually worked? Where's this whole push for, you know, being progressive in our ideology and like changing the way that, you know, females have to interact with males and what the roles that males have to take on. But he does have a point, because I think just naturally, if we look at the economic disenfranchised blacks out here, and how black males aren't able to provide for themselves and a significant other. So the thinking does need to change. You do need to look at your woman and see, okay, well, what is your professional career? What is it that you want to do? And women have to take on somewhat of a selfish mindset to say, well, no, I'm sorry, I'm 23. I'm not trying to have kids right now. I'm trying to go to school. I'm trying to do this, because guess what? The world we live in requires the both of us to be working, the both of us to be nurturing, you know, because that's just what the times call for. So we do have to be kind of open to shifting our views on, you know, and just a marriage too. I mean, if you look at it, the number one causes of divorce is what? Finances and what? Sex.
Communication and sex.
So, you know, how do we change that? I haven't seen anybody yet really come up with like new ways for us to do that. You know.
So true.
What's the new ways for us to do that?
So true.
Those are the issues we really have to tackle. Like, I mean, relationships are going to be what they are. Somebody's going to take on a masculine energy, whether it's the female who's the alpha male, and you might have a beta male, you know, and that's just how that yin and yang works, or vice versa. But the issues that we really need to work on, that we need to be progressive with, we're not doing that, you know, especially when it comes to the sexual compatibility in relationships. That's something we need to talk about, you know, in terms of black millennials. How important is sexual compatibility when it comes to you choosing to mate?
Yeah.
You can have all the money in the world and it just ain't hitting if it ain't hitting.
That's real. That's real.
That's for
we're
another
have to
show.
add it as a taboo topic for next time, but that's real.
Yes.
No, that's absolutely real. The thing is I feel like we are in such a interesting space of time right now.
Oh yeah,
I feel like just in general, like our society is at crossroads a bit, right? I mean, the whole war, all the stuff that's happening, we're at a crossroads. I feel like we're at a point where it's like something has to shift, and it's going to be a major shift, whatever the shift is. And I think that that does affect economies of trade. I think it affects households. I think it affects relationships. But I think what I feel like it always comes back to, because we can have a macro conversation about all the factors that attribute to why someone does the things that they do. And even at a micro level, like you just said, individual personalities, individual compatibilities and things like that. But I always go back to, as an individual, right? The power starts with each of us individually, and how we choose to project things, how we choose to heal from things, how we choose to deal with each other, how we choose to deal with ourselves. I feel like it always starts with us. Because I feel like a lot of what I hear people talk about is, oh, you know, this is how we should do things. This is how that person should do things. But I don't think, I ever really hear people saying, well, you know what? I take an inventory of myself, and this is where I'm at, and this is the type of energy I'm trying to project. And if everyone projected that type of positive energy, that higher vibrational energy, I think it would be easier for us all to work together. So that way, any type of compatibility, no matter what type of relationship it is, it would work, right? Like ideally. So I'm always curious to hear, like, what, you know, closing thoughts, what are your thoughts on some of those pieces that you have found to help you, like, evolve into becoming a better person, and to attract and to be a part of that higher frequency? Like, what are some things that you had to shift as you've grown?
I think I had to shift my ability to empathize and just be compassionate. I think and it's tough because, you know, you have to be compassionate to people's circumstances and just where they are in their lives and where you are, because sometimes a person may not be where you would ideally like for your partner to be.
Right.
But I think you still have to be able to be an observer and not really be so judgmental, like, especially when we're dating, because like the whole dating scene is all about judging people, you know.
That's true.
It's all about judging people, you know. Somebody doesn't have a job, you're like, oh no, I can never date somebody like that. And, you know, we don't really take the time to really just kind of get to know people and just kind of share some of our experiences just to help them, because it's not always going to lead to a happily ever after.
True.
Sometimes you meet a person, you know, certain things just may not be there that you like, but they may teach you something about, you know, yourself. They may teach you something about life. So I think I had to become a better listener to what's being said and also what's not being said. So like what's being said and then what's also being projected, you know, just from energies and auras and stuff, you know. I think once I was able to really like listen to people and just listen to understand, not really so much to respond to what they're saying, but just to kind of understand their perspective, I was able to be a lot more compassionate. And I think it allowed me to have, you know, just better dialogues with people. I think not really taking on like a mentoring, but like just, okay, we can help each other, like outside of just an attraction. Like we can definitely like work together on some things. And, you know, it's just good to have somebody who you know can listen and give you some constructive feedback.
That's real. That is real. I wanted to close out on this. I feel like one of the things this year, and like you and I said, we've spoken about it before, that we want to look to do is really talk more about the identity of the melanated person and healing that. It's like, that's really like where my heart passion is, right? It's like really focusing on our people. And, you know, the film that we did obviously talks a lot about, you know, legacy and understanding and knowing where you came from, because you can't know where you're going. So my encouragement to anyone listening is that, you know, at the end of the day, hello, Antonio Jordan. At the end of the day, 2020 is about starting a new chapter, starting a new decade, but it's also about going backwards, just like we did with the film, kind of going back in order to propel forward. And so I think going back is kind of going deeper and kind of going back to your past and looking through, like, okay, what did I really learn? What did I really gain in the last decade? What lessons, like you said before, what lessons that I know I need to change, or what lessons do I need to learn from? What things do I need to do to change in order to become better? And I do encourage everyone